I'm Charity with the Livewell Home Group, and I'm excited to share with you today the 8 steps that you'll need to take to become a homeowner. So you're thinking about buying a home and you may not know what to do next. Well, I am here to help you understand the 8 steps of buying a home. I'm here to simplify it, but also lay out all the details. So are you ready? Here we go. So step 1 is to meet with a real estate professional. And you might think, well, I don't know, step 1 might be just searching online. And I think that's definitely a precursor because everybody does it. Everybody's searching online for the house that looks like it's going to be their dream house. So feel free to do that. But once you're ready to actually jump in and get ready to buy a house, then you definitely want to meet with a real estate professional. And there's multiple reasons for this, and I'll lay out just a few. One of them is that the listing agent represents the seller on each house. It is their signed duty to make sure that that seller gets represented to the fullest, including getting the best price for the house. So you don't want to just go calling listing agents on each house that you're interested in, because it's not their job to serve your interests. It's their job to serve your seller's interests. So when you hire a buyer's agent, you have their full dedication to you. So the seller has their agent and you have your agent. And their job is to make sure that you are represented to the fullest, that you know everything that's going on, that you get the best deal for the house that you want. So the seller has someone dedicated to their needs, but you need somebody dedicated to your needs. So when you hire a buyer's agent, you have their full dedication to your needs and to making sure that you get represented to the fullest extent. That's very important in any transaction. Just like people hire lawyers to represent each side, in a real estate transaction, you hire agents to represent each side. So most people are interested in how does that agent get paid? And that is a really good question. So sellers are going to sign a listing agreement with their seller, and they are going to negotiate a commission for themselves. And then they're also going to talk with their seller to suggest to them that they offer a commission to the buyer's agent, because they want buyer's agents to bring buyers to their home and be compensated for that. So as sellers are talking with their agents and are receiving advice on what they should do to offer compensation, they will often include their compensation to the buyer's agent in the contract. So that means when you look at a listing, you can actually see what is offered to the buyer's agent. Now, let's back up just a little bit. When you hire that buyer's agent, you are going to be signing what's called a buyer's agency agreement. And that agreement actually outlines what duties the buyer's agent has to you. They'll give you a pamphlet as well, which gives you all the details of everything they're responsible. As buyer's agents, we are held to a very high standard, and we want our clients to know what to expect from us. So that is a great time to have a conversation about that when you are talking with a buyer's agent and thinking about hiring them. So when you do sign that buyer's agency agreement, there will also be a section in there that says what the compensation is for the buyer's agent. And each buyer's agent has the opportunity to put in what they feel their compensation needs to be. What's important to know is that when you sign that buyer's agency agreement, there will also be a clause that allows your agent to negotiate for more commission if the seller is offering less or whatever they put in there. Now, I cannot say that it always happens this way, but in my experience, sellers offer something of commission. So what's most important is that you as a buyer are always in control. You have options when you're looking through homes and you notice that the buyer agent fee is perhaps less than what you and your agent agreed on. One thing you could do is just not look at the home at all and just decide to keep looking at homes that offer the amount that you've already agreed with your agent. The other is to go look at the home, and if you want to write an offer, let your agent go ahead and negotiate for more commission on their behalf. The third option is for you to go look at the home, and then if you write an offer and the seller does not agree to adjust the commission, then you have the option of bringing the extra funds at closing. So you're always in control. You don't have to choose a house. You can have your agent negotiate, or you can bring extra money. So it's never somebody else's decision. It's always yours. So remember, when you get started in this process, it is definitely important for you to hire a buyer's agent so that your best interests are served, because you want to make sure that you have good chemistry with that person. You're going to be spending a lot of time with them. You want to know that they're experienced, they know the area, and you also want to know that you can get along with them really well. Another thing that's important to remember is that your agent can sometimes become your confidant, your therapist. Of course, nobody's licensed to be a therapist, but you'll know that once you get started in the process, it can be very stressful, and you want somebody that's by your side who can encourage you along and help you get to your goals. So, step 1, meet with a real estate professional and hire one. Step 2 in the home buying process is to get pre-approved. Most agents will have multiple lenders that they've worked with over the years and that they highly recommend. So you'll definitely want to get a recommendation for them. You can always use a credit union or a bank or something online, a larger company. But my suggestion, because of my experience, is to work with a local lender who the agent knows and can trust. You are going to be spending a lot of time looking at homes and making offers, usually on the weekends. And banks and credit unions are often available on the weekends. And every time you write an offer for a different price, you need a new pre-approval letter for that price. Also, because your agent has worked with one of those lenders previously, they really know that it's their goal to get to the closing table on time, and they know that they're trustworthy to work out any problems. So definitely ask for a recommendation. The pre-approval process can be a little bit daunting for some people. Most lenders will offer you a link that you can use to start the pre-approval process online, and then they'll let you know what you need in regards to documents to supply for them to verify everything. If you have a basic 9-to-5 job that you've had for a while, then it's going to be pretty simple, basic. But if you're self-employed or you own businesses, the process is going to be a little bit longer and they're going to require a lot more documentation. So be ready for that. I myself, even when I buy houses, I actually feel the pain of the pre-approval process. So it's okay if it feels daunting, but it will be rewarding because then you'll be on the other side ready to shop for homes. So when you get pre-approved, there's going to be some things that the lender is going to do. He's going to pull your credit, and sometimes people are worried about having a hard hit on their credit. Yes, it does hit your credit, but what I've noticed is that most of the people that are worried about their credit getting a hit actually have such super high credit scores that it really isn't going to make a difference as to the loan that they qualify for. But yes, I understand it is a little bit daunting sometimes when you've been working on your credit for so long to know that it's going to take a hit, but you can't get to the other side and get a home unless you do this part. So very important to do this. Also, if you do want to compare lenders during this time, you have 45 days to have different lenders run the numbers. Even if they pull your credit multiple times, it stays in one basic credit pull. Government has made it so that you can search out different lenders and make sure that there's good competition. So just know that it's not going to pull on your credit hard every time you do it if you do it within those 45 days. So once you've entered all of your information in and they've gotten the documents that they need, they're going to look at not only your credit score, but your debt to income ratio, how much debt you have compared to how much income you have. And that's going to be very important, and we'll also go into how they pre-approve you. They also are going to want to know that you've been employed in the same, not necessarily the same position or the same company, but that you've been doing the same thing for at least 2 years and you have consistent work history. That's very important. If you have any doubt on any of this and you have any questions as to if you could be pre-approved, just go ahead and comment below, and I'd love to chat with you a little bit further about this. Many people have questions about the different types of loans. There are VA loans that require 0 down payment, also USDA loans that require 0 down payment. There are FHA loans that start at 3.5% down, and conventional that start at 3% and move up. And you notice that I didn't say 20% down. If you've been around a while, you're probably used to having to have 20% down, but that's no longer the case. Of course, if you don't have 20% down, you will be paying something called mortgage insurance. That is an extra fee that will be applied, and you'll be paying it monthly along with your mortgage. But once you get down to the point where you've paid 20% into the home with all of your payments that you've been making, or you have the house reevaluated with a new appraisal and the price comes in and it shows that you actually have 80% equity, then you can ask for that to be removed. So it doesn't last forever, which is good to know. So one of the things that people often wonder besides down payment is if there's any other cash needed. And the answer is yes. So there's a few things that you will need to have cash upfront and prepared for. One of them is closing costs. So Down payment, as we said, can be about 3.5%. That's about what I see most of my clients paying for their down payment. But there's something called closing costs. And you may not have heard of this, but closing costs are all the fees that go into your loan and closing. So the escrow and title company, they are the ones that process your paperwork and handle the funds, and they have fees that go into it. There are also fees that come from the lender, and depending on what kind of loan you get or if you pay down any points, there's going to be fees included in that. You also are paying for your homeowner's insurance and you're paying for your taxes ahead of time. So there are quite a few fees that go into your closing costs. So you need to prepare for about 2.5% of the purchase price as your closing costs. So it's about 6% total if you're getting a 3.5% loan. Besides your closing costs, the other amount of money that you're going to need is earnest money for an earnest money deposit. Earnest money is a guarantee to the sellers that you're serious about making an offer. It's like putting your money where your mouth is. So it's typically can range, it can be anything. But what I see in my area is about 1%. So if you're buying a $500,000 house, it's $5,000. And that needs to be deposited after your offer is accepted to the title company. And they're going to hold in escrow during the entire transaction. Now, this is your money, which is very important to know. And your money is going to sit there the entire time. And when it's time to close, if you need to bring $30,000 for down payment closing costs, $5,000 will already be there. So you'll just be bringing $25,000. But this is also very important to know about earnest money is that if you decide to back out of the deal during what's called your inspection contingency time, which we'll talk about later, if you back out during that time, you get your earnest money back. It's your money, like we talked about, you get it back. You can move on if there's a problem with the house or anything. You can just say, nope, I'm done, I'm out, and you'll get that earnest money back. However, it's very important to know that after that time frame, if you decide to back out, you get cold feet or even something crazy happens and you have to back out of the deal, then most of the time that money is going to stay with the sellers. There are a few other contingencies involved where you may be getting your earnest money back. But generally, it stays with the sellers because you have been under contract with them and it's their compensation for your breach of contract. And they've had to take their house off the market, and when they put it back on, it's likely not going to sell for as much. They also have to pay another mortgage payment as this is dragging out a little bit longer. So as you can understand, it's fair that the sellers get to keep that. So just remember, if you're feeling a little bit woozy and don't know if you want to stay in the deal, you definitely may need to make that decision during the inspection contingency time. And that's right up front. We'll talk about that later and how long that lasts. The other cash that you need to have is for your inspection. You're going to have a home inspection done, and it's typically going to be between $500 and $650. And that fee you will pay directly to the inspector, and that's going to happen a couple days after you go under contract as well. So earnest money, closing costs, down payment, money for inspection, you're going to need to have all those things. The other thing that's important to know in financing is that you do not want to start spending ahead on your credit cards or even emptying out your savings account while you're under contract, because remember that debt to income ratio that we talked about? That sometimes is very close to being right on the verge of not being in a good spot. So if you go out and buy your furniture ahead of time or your refrigerator ahead of time or a car, you may not actually qualify for the loan once you've done that. So just like spending freeze. Spending freeze is very important to remember during this whole home buying process. So step 2, getting pre-approved, as we said, is very important. Even if it's daunting, just know that you have a professional by your side and they really want to help you get through the process as well. So feel free to ask all of your questions to the lender. They like that. They would much prefer that you know what's happening than to feel like you're left out in the dark. Definitely ask them every question that you have so that you can understand the process more fully. So let's move on to step number 3. Step number 3 is often considered the fun part, where you get to go look for homes. Your agent will set up a custom search for you to make sure that you have access to all the homes in the area that have your particular criteria in mind. Now, sometimes you will find a home online that may not be in the search that your agent set up for you, and that's only because you might be looking a little bit outside the criteria. Maybe the price is different, or the bedroom count, or the square footage is different, or maybe the area that you originally told them. So make sure you update your agent on the areas that you want to be in and your criteria. And I tend to like to leave it quite broad. I know sometimes people come into it with very specific needs, and then they buy a little bit outside of that once they get looking. So it's good to leave it a little bit broad so you can see all the homes available in your market to look at. So once you have that custom search set up, you're going to identify the homes that you're interested in and just go ahead and let your agent know which ones you want to see. Now, I have showed up to 15 homes in one day. It can be done, very difficult if there's a lot of people in tow, but it's possible. Sometimes seeing a lot of homes is a good idea because it just gets it all over in one day, but sometimes you can start to forget what the houses were that you even saw because you've seen so many in one day. So that's an option. Otherwise, you can go see a couple houses at a time, but it's very important to talk to your agent about the market and how fast you need to act. Every market is different, and it may fluctuate from season to season, from when you start looking to when maybe a couple months later and you're still looking, and the market may be completely different. So make sure you talk to your agent about what the market's like and how fast you need to get your offer in. There are certain times when the offers need to be reviewed by a certain day, so your agent will need to make sure to get that to them. So when you're out looking at homes, make sure to give your agent feedback on what you like. If you hate carpet, then let them know. If you love a good, big, huge kitchen with an island, let them know. If you feel a little cramped in a house with low ceilings, let them know. They want to know as much as they can so they can continue to dial in exactly what you're looking for. The other bit of advice I recommend is have fun. This is the fun part. Remember, we'll get to all the details later, but get out there and have fun. Get to know your agent through this process and really enjoy this time. Okay, let's move on to step number 4. Step number 4 is making an offer. And before you can make an offer, you need to talk with your agent about strategy. What kind of strategy do you need in order to win this house? Like I said, markets are different. So in a market where things are moving very quickly, you may have to give up a few things. You may have to offer extra money above the list price. You may have to offer particular incentives to help the seller pick yours. But a good agent who sells a lot of homes is going to know what's important and how to write an offer. So make sure you talk through strategy and listen to their advice because they are the professionals. So if you're in a market where things aren't moving as quickly, then you're going to have some other options and your strategy is going to be completely different. You may be able to offer under list price. You may be able to ask for closing costs to be paid. You may have longer to get your inspection done. There are a lot of things to discuss in writing an offer, so make sure that you strategize with your agent prior to writing that offer. So step number 5 after we've made an offer is negotiation. So just because we write an offer and it's beautiful and wonderful, it doesn't mean that the sellers are going to accept it. They may actually have other agents that have written offers as well. So there's going to be some negotiation that might happen. They may send you back a counteroffer, and in that counteroffer, you have choices. You can say, no, I don't like this, I'm walking away. You can counter back to them, or you can accept what they have offered you. And your agent will discuss with you all of those options and help you come up with the best decision. So after step number 5 comes step number 6, which is under contract, or what's also called as in escrow. So during this time, the escrow company and title company is going to make sure that all of the documents are in order. Your lender is also going to make sure that everything is in order and that they get the documents over to escrow and title. Your lender during this time is probably going to need some more information from you. Your underwriters are going to ask you for some specifics, especially if you have a more complicated file. The most important thing to know during this time is please get the lender everything they need as soon as possible. I have had closings delayed because the buyers weren't getting things to the lender in time. So this is your part. Make sure that you get everything they need in time. So during this time, the lender's also going to ask you to secure your homeowner's insurance. And they need that as part of the closing document. So you're going to want to shop around. I've done this before, and I know there is a wide variance between homeowners insurance prices. Make sure you're getting the same coverage. So compare apples to apples, not apples to oranges. And just know that this can take some time. When I've done it, I've been frustrated with how much of my day was taken up doing this, but very important because it's something you're going to be paying for every month. So during the under contract and in escrow stage, you're also going to have an inspection done. Your agent will be able to put down on your offer how many days that you would require to have this done. But typically in my area, we do about 5 days. So during that time, you will have an inspection done. Your agent will recommend inspectors to you that they trust and that they've used multiple times. Of course, you could do all your research and decide who you'd like to use, but they have a lot of experience, and an inspector can make a really big difference as to how the transaction goes. So definitely take their advice. So when you have this inspection done, you don't have to be there, but it's highly recommended that you are. Your agent will be there with you, and your agent will be there without you if you can't make it. The inspector is going to inspect all the systems. He's going to go up in the attic. He's going to go down in the crawl space. He's going to look at the plumbing. He's going to look at the electrical, everything that he can see. Can't tear apart any walls or anything like that, but everything that he can see and that he can have access to. It's his job to tell you anything that is deficient or problematic. And I just have to tell you that inspection reports can be really overwhelming, especially if it's an older home. You can see hundreds of things on these inspection reports, but it's your agent's job to help you wade through all that. They're used to it. So they are going to be able to help you see what are the health and safety items of things that you may want to ask for, and also big ticket items are the other things that you're going to want to address. So once you've looked through your inspection report with your agent, you're going to put together a list of things that you would like the sellers to repair for you. Sometimes you can ask for a credit in lieu of repairs. So maybe there's a list of 10 things, but one of you is really handy and you think you could handle it on your own, and you know that it might take a while for them to get a contractor out to get all these things done. So you could ask for either the repairs or a credit in lieu of repairs. If they do offer you a credit, then that can be applied towards your closing costs. So you don't necessarily have to bring maybe your $10,000 in closing costs. If they credit you $10,000, that's basically putting that money back in your pocket because you don't have to bring it to closing. You will then have that money to do the repairs. So that is often a very good option. But if you don't choose that and you ask the sellers to go ahead and make some repairs, they do have options as to what their response can be. They don't have to say yes to anything. They can say yes to a couple things, or they can accept and do all of it. So just know that. And your agent is going to do a great job negotiating at this point to make sure that your needs are best represented as well. So while you're in this under contract and escrow stage, what's going to happen is the lender is going to send out an appraiser. And an appraiser's job is to make sure that that house is worth what you said that you would buy it for. The lender will not lend more than what the appraiser tells them it's worth. So it's the appraiser's job to make sure that the house is worth what you said that you would pay for it. And they do this by comparing similar houses that have sold recently in the area. Sometimes an appraisal can come in lower than the price that you said that you would pay for it. And if that happens, then it's time for your agent to go back to work and negotiate with the sellers. What can happen in this situation is the sellers can decide to reduce their price down to the amount that the appraiser said that it was worth. Another thing that can happen is the agents can decide to dispute the amount and send more comparables to the appraiser and see if they'll change their mind. From my experience, it doesn't happen very often. Another option is you can split the difference. They can lower the price a little bit and you can make up a little bit of the difference so that everybody comes to the right number. In my experience, oftentimes sellers will decide to lower the price down to the amount if the buyer doesn't have any funds to bring extra. And the reason they'll do this is because they don't want to go through this whole process over again. So they don't want to put the house back on the market and wait for it to happen and then see if the appraisal comes in differently. And with certain types of loans, the appraisal actually sticks to the property, meaning for 6 months, no matter what, that appraisal is going to be the same for a certain type of loans. So if that comes to that, your agent's going to know what to do and they will represent you to the fullest extent to make sure that your best interests are in order. So step number 7 is final details. So during this time, you're going to do what's called a walkthrough. And that's usually, 3 to 5 days before closing. This is your opportunity to make sure that all the repairs that you asked to be made were actually made and done well. You'll also get receipts if they were done by a contractor to make sure that things were done. But it's good to walk through even if you didn't ask for anything to be done or there was nothing needed. You actually should do a walkthrough anyways, because who knows, maybe somebody put their elbow through a wall. Maybe the house is vacant and the water has been running the whole time and there's water damage. It's a very good idea to do this walkthrough no matter what. Also during this stage, at least 3 days prior to closing, you're going to get what's called a closing disclosure or a CD from your lender. This is very important. You have to sign that at least 3 days prior to closing. So I do not get a notification as an agent as to when that signs. That's between you and your lender. So I can't help remind you of this, but when you see it, make sure you read over it. That's the details of the loan, and make sure you sign it so that it doesn't delay closing. So once we have all these final details done, guess what's next? Closing day. So closing day is a date that we put on the original contract. Generally in our area, it's about 30 days from when we write the contract. And that usually is because it takes the lender and the escrow team about that amount of time, the appraiser and everything to get it done. Sometimes you can do it faster than that, and sometimes the sellers may want it to be longer, but generally about 30 days. So once closing day comes, as I mentioned, sometimes things can happen to delay closing. So just be aware of that. Put that date on your calendar in pencil, not in pen, because it can fluctuate just a little bit. When closing date gets here in Washington, particularly, what happens is you will sign your documentation, sometimes a day or two before if everything is ready. But that doesn't mean that you're closing on that day, you're still closing the day of closing. So you'll sign your documentation. All parties need to be present. You'll do that at the title company, or they can have a notary sent to you. If you're going to be out of town, that's okay, but you just need to let your agent know ahead of time so that she can let the escrow team know that you'll need a notary in a different location. If there's more than one party and one of you is out of town, that's okay too. We can do the same thing. So once you've signed, that doesn't mean it's time to get your keys. I know I've lived in other states, and as soon as you sign, you get the keys and you're done. But in Washington, what happens is all the documentation has to get sent to the county. And the county has to record it, and they will send back recording numbers to the escrow company. And once the escrow company lets me know that the recording numbers are back, then officially you are a new homeowner. However, according to contract, officially you get the keys at 9 p.m. on closing day, which seems really late, but most of the time you'll get the keys sooner than that. Technically, according to contract, it's that time, but most sellers have moved out and have given permission to your agent to go ahead and get you the keys as soon as closing happens. So once your agent gets that call, they're going to call you and let you know it's time to meet and get keys. This is the best day. This is what we've all been working for. I love closing day. We get to the house, I hand over the keys, we high five, we hug, I give a gift. We often walk through the house so I can hear all the exciting things that they're planning on doing to the house. It's such a great day, and it's the culmination of everything we've been working for. And really, 8 steps to get there is not very many. And if you are thinking about buying a home and this has been helpful, then go ahead and click the link in the description below, and you can get on my calendar and we can talk about everything that's important to you. If you'd like a copy of the buyer's guide that we've been working through, go ahead and click on the link in the description below for Get Your Free Buyer's Guide. And then you can have a cheat sheet to remind yourself of all the things that we've talked about. If after watching this video, you've decided, I think it's time for me to connect with a buyer's agent, then I can help you. Even if you're not in Washington, I have a network of agents all over the globe, and I can make sure to get you matched up with one that will work great in your area. So drop a comment below and let me know what city and state you're searching in, and I will get you connected.